Good morning, guys. Want to welcome you to another 60 minutes with Mother Nature. I want to apologize for yesterday. The weather was on, so we weren't able to basically come out as I would want to. Today I'm again in my yard. We have a lot of plants. We're going to be looking at some more plants. Um, want to give uh, time for some persons to jump on, persons to get on. 60 minutes with Mother Nature. What's that about? So it's about just basically interacting with Mother Nature. I realized that since lately I've been so limited and I've been so captured into the clinics. I didn't start out like that. Um, I didn't start out, just moving from one clinic to the other. And right now we have about 4 clinics. Morning, morning, morning. I don't know. Is that Cheersey? Let me know who is on and where you're watching from. But I didn't. I started out pretty much being very much immersed in nature. I would come out for walks like these, and I would come out for just to recalibrate the mind. And after working, we started one clinic. We were a clinic in Port Antonio, Portland, and then we started another clinic in Morant Bay, St. Thomas, and then we have another clinic in Kingston, and we have one in St. Hans Bay. And once we got the clinic started, it was more now about getting up and going to the clinics. And after a while, I found out that it became monotonous, and I became something that I really enjoyed. I started to realize that I was getting somewhat bored. I didn't bored alone, but I was murmuring and complaining. And so I started to do a reflection. What is it that's missing? And I realized one of the missing element is the time I used to spend with nature. This is how I recharge, because for me, I get inspired being with the plants. I get so inspired just being with nature, and so I decided to go back. Visit the old landmark and go back to the times I had to spend at least an hour. And I decided to share that with you because usually, again, I like to teach. That's another thing I found out, that apart from spending time with nature, one of the things that was really affecting me was the fact that because of how the clinics are set up, I don't get a chance to spend as much time as with persons that I would want to. It's more like seeing persons, helping them to identify what's wrong and helping them to fix. You really can't spend the time to really share with persons as you would want to. And so that element of not being able to teach, of not being able to share, what it did was it brought me to a point of frustration. And so I decided to use one stone and kill two birds. So, I can get the chance to interact with nature before I go out. So it recalibrates me, it balances me. And I also get the chance to share my thoughts. So, it's really nice being here. Want to welcome you. I don't know who is on. Just say hi or something. Let me know who it is, and tell us where you're from. Tell us where in the world you're from. We love to know where you're from. Watching us. We love to uh, get the interaction. And so we invite you, if you would love, we invite you to join our Telegram community. There's actually a link in the description for you to join our community, for you to just not be a part, a spectator, but also to be a participant in this journey of learning herbs. A lot of persons who like the idea, they like the concept, and so they want to just stand off as spectators and learn. But herbology is based on relationship. Natural medicine is based on relationship. It's based on relationship with persons, and it's also based on relationship with plants. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to have that relationship. Take the time out, not to be too busy, but take the time out to interact with Mother Nature, interact with where you're from. I believe that I've been to a number of areas, and the first episode that I did, I was in St. Thomas in um, St. Thomas in Paul Bogle's home, Paul Bogle's yard, and I listened to our guest as he shared, and this of course wasn't planned, but I listened to him as he shared, and it really dawned on me that one of the reasons why we have lost that sixth sense, the sense of intuition, is because we don't interact with nature. We don't interact with nature. The animals interact more with nature. And so their sixth sense, which is the sense of intuition, is much more heightened than ours. And so if you don't want to, there's a saying that says that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And so in order to heighten and to increase your sixth sense, there is an importance on spending time with nature where you can connect with nature and that sense, you know, yesterday I had an experience where I came so close to somebody, and this is somebody who is very close to me, somebody who is ill, somebody who is sick, somebody who they're pretty much questioning cancer. We know that the person has bad cells in their tummy, but yesterday, just being close enough, I sensed something, and when I sensed something, basically I looked at the person's tummy, and yes, the tummy was swollen a little more. The person's experiencing a lot of discomfort, and for that person, I made some recommendation, and so when I brought it to my wife's attention, she could see it. She checks the ultrasound report, and she could see that um, there are some assessments that were done, and when she thought that it was more recent, it was far beyond that, and so she could see what I'm saying. And I'm saying that to say that even since I've started to come back out and spend more time with nature, definitely it has been a blessing in terms of helping my intuition. Um, Yesterday, for the past 2 days, for the last two sessions that we had, we spoke about observation, we spoke about interpretation, and today we're going to spend a little time talking about application. So observation, we looked at how our ancestors knew the healing properties of herbs, and we spoke about their ability to observe their surrounding. We saw one thing that they did was that they observed for the plants that occurred frequently. And if you know, I don't know if you know, but know this by now, but I don't spend a lot of time talking about the names of plants, because here's what happened. Names are labels. So no plant, first of all, the body doesn't know any herb by name. That the body is going to recognize that herb based on the healing properties and the healing constituents in that plant. So the plant won't know, oh, that this is moringa, or this is guinea hen, and oh, this is the body. So our system will not recognize a plant from that perspective. Our system is going to recognize that plant from the basis of the chemicals and the effect that the chemicals have on the cells. Now, for our brain, for our mental ability, we need to attach names. But remember now that, for example, most of the names that a plant will have will be based on the experience that that person who gave the name had. And so what it sometimes does is that it can limit you, because if you heard that this is Guinea and Guinea hen is good for this and Guinea hen is good for that, that was a person's experience with the herb. And so that is their testimony. That is what they have to say. That is what they have to share. And so you may go to the plant with that bias or with that narrative, preconditioned narrative, and that sometimes affects your relationship. And so that is the reason why you'll find a plant having so many common names, because the common name of a plant was based on the experience that a person or a group of person had in a particular geographical location. And that name may change from place to place. And so sometimes that preconceived notion prevents you from having your unique experience. All right. Good morning, Mitzi. I'm gonna call you afterwards. Good morning, when I hear about what's happening with you. So that is gonna affect your experience. And so what you find is that one plant may have 5 common name or 6 common name. And if you look at the names, it's interesting because a lot of the times, morning Charissa, a lot of times the common name is based on the experience that the person had. And so sometimes you want to have that unique experience, which is one of the reasons why I like to approach plants like a blank slate. So I don't spend a lot of time talking about names, but of course names are important because it is labels that help us to categorize and organize and structure these things. But as it relates to herb, I more base herbs on the experience that you may have, because who knows, maybe you might give that herb a different name based on your experience. So maybe you may add to that whole group of common name that the herb has. But today we're going to talk about application. So we looked at the observation, looking at the herb, how it occurred, how frequently it occurred in that space. And by the way, I see one person. I see Chair C has posted in our Telegram group the plans that she's seeing. Remember, we want this to be an experiential journey. I don't want you to be a spectators. I love you guys. I enjoy having you guys on, but I really want you guys to get in the game, to get busy. It doesn't take much. Just go outside and just see what herbs you see. If it's 5 or 6 or 7, what herbs do you see occurring frequently around you? And as I said, most of the times the herbs that you see occurring frequently around you is an indication of the sickness or the disease that will manifest in that particular geographical location. There's a saying that says most of the herbs that you see in your yard is based on conditions for the persons living in that yard. And so a lot of persons, when I share that concept, a lot of persons have tested and say, oh, Dr. Ben, I had diabetes. And the minute you started to identify this herb and identify that herb and identify this herb, I was so amazed because I was able to find the remedy in my yard. And that was where, the whole notion of the greatest weapon against sickness and disease is education, not medication, came from. Because I realized very early in my study, based on observation, I observed and realized this principle to be so profound that our creator Yahuwah never intended health to be expensive. It never intended healthcare to be expensive. The reason for that is because the remedy would be found locally and the remedy would be in abundance. So when something is found abundantly and when something is readily available, then even if there's a high demand, guess what? It doesn't affect price. So in his mind, just like our oxygen, so everything that we need, he provides in abundance. So we need water, he makes sure that water is in abundance. We need oxygen, he makes sure that oxygen is in abundance. We need medicine. So if you look from outer space on the earth, what you will see is a lot of greens, because he knows that we need food and medicine, so he makes it in abundance. Now it is our responsibility to do our homework to find out what it is that we have in the pharmacy around us. And so where we live, your yard is pretty much your pharmacy. It is where your food is and it is where your medicine is. But what we have done is that we have allowed ourselves to be disconnected from nature, so much so that the solution is right in your yard, the solution is right around you, but you haven't spent the time to engage nature, for nature to relate to you. What is it that you need? So what we're doing is taking an indigenous approach to learning herbs. And that's what I want you to do. So I really want you to get involved, because the goal is I'm going to bring you through that journey. We go more in depth in the class. We go more in depth in the school. We kind of approach it. Even though we approach it from an indigenous perspective, we do apply a lot more science to give context and to give credibility to what we're doing. For this vlog, what I'm doing is just purely focus on the indigenous artistic form of medicine. All right. So the whole idea is to help you to be able to develop from around you your own list of medicinal plants. So when you take the picture of the herbs and send them to me, then I'm going to help you to ID them. Then I'm going to encourage you to taste them and to experience, get an idea as to how to identify the medicinal taste in plants. And then after you identify those medicinal tastes, we're going to teach you how to write them down and how to do more research and learning about them. And eventually, in terms of application, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start making teas. We're going to experience those teas. We're going to share those experiences. And that is how our ancestors developed what is called oral tradition. They couldn't read or write, but what they did was that when they did what I just shared with you, they shared their experience, and that is how they helped to add to the volume of oral traditions. Sad to say, we didn't spend the time to document what we were doing. The Chinese did that, and that is the reason why they are so advanced. The Indians did that in Ayurvedic medicine. That is why they're so advanced. The Japanese in Kampa, that is why they're so advanced. We have not done a good job. And so what happened is that about 60 years ago, Jamaica and the Caribbean enjoyed a very high dependence on natural medicine as a primary means of healthcare. And so what happened is that for Western medicine to take root, what it did was that it deeply um, caused us to develop a mistrust for our healers because of the fact that they weren't scientific enough in their approach, or so they thought. They weren't educated. And so what they did was that they cast a snare of doubt. They cast a snare of a lack of respect for the wisdom of our ancestors. And in so doing, what we did was that we adopted Western medicine. It became our primary means of healthcare. What I'm advocating for now is, like Chinese and like India and like so many other countries, I'm advocating for our medicine, indigenous Caribbean medicine, to be developed to the point where it is also practiced alongside Western medicine, because there's absolutely no harm in that. Number one, there's a lot of people who trust it, and that is why we launched the college, because our goal is to give birth to practitioners who can help to share that knowledge in what I call a systemic, structured, and reputable way. So what we have done basically is that we have organized a system of studying and determining the medicinal properties of herbs. What somebody reached out to me and asked me if we are accredited, and I asked them, the Wright brothers, when the Wright brothers were inventing the airplane, who accredited them? Who accredited the first person who invented a submarine? Most of the persons who have been innovative and who have been instrumental in impacting the world didn't have anybody to certify them, simply because there was no organization that could, because what they were doing was pioneering work. What they were doing was innovative work. And so we are pushing indigenous Caribbean medicine. There is no entity, there is no body that can certify us. However, what I'll be doing is I'll be putting together, and I've started putting it together, a peer-to-peer certification body. So that peer-to-peer certification body is not designed to certify the course, but it will be designed to certify the practitioners. So among ourselves, we have we have put together what I call benchmark standards and principles, and those benchmark and standard of principles is what we have developed by ourselves. That group will also involve members and leaders of the different indigenous communities, like the Maroon and the Tainers and other indigenous groups across the island. And so what it will do, it will say that these indigenous communities approve and they respect what we are doing. And so that is all we need. This whole concept of certification is more of control. And our ancestors never had that. Our ancestors had a system where a natural practitioner was held in high esteem and respect by their peers. And so that's the same type of approach that we're putting together for our program. So persons who do the program will get an opportunity to register or to be a part of that entity, international guild of Indigenous Caribbean Medicine. That's the name of it, International Guild of Indigenous Caribbean Medicine. So it will be a herbal guild comprising of peer-to-peer recognition or peer-to-peer certification of individuals. All right, and so that's basically that. As I said, I'm 20 minutes in the live, guys. I want to talk about. I want to look at some herbs. We want to look at application. But yesterday was Independence, and I can't help but to talk about that because it weighed heavily on me as we talk about independence. How do I see independence from the standpoint of natural medicine? In other words, to be independent means to be self-governed. To be independent means to have autonomy. It means getting the power to define yourself. And when I look at that, I look at Jamaica still, because independence is a time when we celebrate aspects of our culture and aspects of our achievement. We look at where we are now and where we are coming from. And it's funny because when I look at our culture, I look at Jamaica celebrating its language. I look at Jamaica celebrating its music. I look at Jamaica celebrating so many aspects of its culture, but rarely, if ever, do you see Jamaica celebrating the aspect of its healing. And even for February, Black History Month, I definitely want to take a more integral role in terms of advocacy as it relates to this. We have a medicine that has kept us alive for generations. We have a medicine that has kept us alive up until where we are now. And I believe that medicine has not been respected. And you've heard me say it over and over again. It has not been respected. But what I want to say to you guys is, whereas we have not respected our medicine. Let me just talk about two persons who have respected our medicine. The Queen of England, right? The Queen of England gave so much recognition to one of our natural healers. So we had a natural healer that has impacted the globe to the point where she gained recognition from England and she gained recognition from the Queen. And I'm telling you, we have never heard about this natural healer. Let me say that again. We have a natural healer. We have a ancestor who practiced herbal medicine to the point where she gained recognition from England and she gained recognition from the Queen, to the point where the Queen took it upon herself to be personally responsible for that natural healer until they died. That is the level of recognition. That is the level of impact I'm talking about. And we hear very little about this healer. We hear little about the work that the healer has done. And we see very little. And this healer has impacted the world on a global stage. So I mean, we don't hear about this person. And in the course, I go more in depth in talking about this particular healer. This particular healer had, one of the reasons why I believe that this particular healer was not talked about was that there was a white version. There was a white healer, a white person that was a contemporary of that particular healer. So both of them existed at the same time. Both works were very similar. And so in order to obscure the work of the natural healer from Jamaica, the system gave more attention to the healer who was of a white ethnicity. But nonetheless, the work of the local healer from go unnoticed. I mean, because of what that healer did, it couldn't be ignored. When that healer came back to England, basically that healer was given a hero's welcome, and she was taken care of. And that person is from Jamaica, and we don't see that person being celebrated in the history of Jamaica and the culture of Jamaica. Another person I want to talk about before I go into, because I'm 24 minutes into the live, another person I want to talk about is another person of white ethnicity. This particular person lived around the time of slavery. Look him up. His name was John Lindsay. And John Lindsay was a preacher from England who accompanied the slave ships. So he was on the slave ships to Africa. He left the slave ships from Africa and he would journey with the slave ships, taking notes. He was there. Mitzi. I'm going to tell you the person's name. Just hold on. This person, so the second person I'm talking about is John Lindsay. And he was a philosopher and he was an author. And he was from England. He was married into a plantocracy family from Jamaica. And basically what he did was that he traveled from England to Africa to purchase slaves. Then he left Africa, he came to the Caribbean, all the different islands of the Caribbean. He traveled with them, and what he was doing was documenting. He saw something of value, and so he was documenting. He was taking notes. And this person, what he was doing was that he wrote, he compiled a series of books called Elegancies of Jamaica. And what it is basically, oh, and by the way, so he left England, he traveled to Africa, he left Africa and he traveled to all the different countries of the Caribbean, documenting and recording. And then in his final years, in terms of where he decided to reside, he decided to reside in Jamaica. So I believe he was able to look at all the different countries, all the different islands, and he saw Jamaica as being the most valuable island to reside and to continue his work until he died. One of the result of his work is a volume, it's about a 4-volume book called Elegancies of Jamaica. Now, do you want to know what he was observing and what he was writing? Well, what he was doing was he was documenting the whole social journey, and he was also making note of all the different plants. He was making notes of our ancestrals' knowledge of plants, our wisdom of using herbs. So you may ask, why was he doing that? We have to go back into the mind of colonialism back then. And again, I hope I'm not boring you. I didn't want to go into all this philosophy, but it's very important for us sometimes to have perspective as to why we are where we are. I'm going to look at some herbs, I promise you, but I want to give context to where we are. So John Lindsay was a philosopher. Philosophers influence thinking and the patterns of thinking. Influencers also seek to get the truth, they ascertain the truth, so they know how to skew it, they know how to twist it, they know how to affect generational thinking and generational worldview. So John Lindsay was on the slave ship. He's a preacher, he's a pastor, he's a preacher. And of course, I would think that he would also be seeking to convert slaves. But more so, he was taking notes, and he had a very keen interest in our medicinal knowledge of plants. Hey, Hagley, where you're from? Let me know where you're from. Greetings, that important. All right, so let me know where you're from, because I want to go into this, but I want to just talk about this some more, because we just celebrated our independence yesterday, and it's appalling how we celebrate so many aspects of our culture, yet we leave out a very, very important component of it. That very important component is our ability to feed ourselves and the ability to medicate ourselves. So John Lindsay traveled from country to country, and he recorded the medicinal. So when he went to Africa, he would have recorded the plants that he saw in Africa. When he came to Jamaica, he would have recorded the plants he saw in Jamaica. When he went to Cuba, he would have recorded those plants. He would record how when the slaves were sick, because he would have seen them at their worst. When they came to the plantation, what we are doing now, he would have had a first-hand experience in seeing how they applied, how they would come to a new land, and how they were able to interact and to find plants to take to get better. So from that, he wrote a book, Elegances of Jamaica. Now, I talk about going back into the mind of our colonial masters, because when our colonial masters came to Jamaica and came to the Caribbean, they came to the New World, they were exploiting and they were looking for things that were of value. In other words, here they were in England and they found new territory. They were after, what could we exploit? What could we use to improve our homeland and make ourselves better, which is why they're called first world countries, because they took from what they called third world countries to develop their first world countries. It wasn't just tangible assets. They took a lot of intangible assets with them. So he made note and he developed a 4-volume book called Elegances of Jamaica. And in Elegances of Jamaica, it's now being, that book is, the manuscript is actually in the British Museum up until this day. In my course, I go a lot into, because I've gone into the book and I've looked at what he did. I'll give you an example. He made note, it was from the book that I realized that most of the slaves in Jamaica were the doctors and most of the slaves were the vets. Because here's what happened. Slavery, most of the slaves came from subtropical regions. We are subtropical people. So when the subtropical persons came into a tropical context, what happened was, number one, when the slaves began to observe the plants, they were seeing many of the plants that were related to the plants that were coming from. So they were able to adjust to them and to identify somewhat their uses. And so in the book, again, because the plantation owners came and they weren't from this locale, they were experiencing diseases that was completely new to them. The blunt of the disease is tropical and subtropical disease. And in the course, I go through a list of the tropical and subtropical diseases that we're facing them now, that is not facing us now. So if you have subtropical and tropical disease, then you need tropical and subtropical cures. You're going to get that from tropical and subtropical plants. Who is the best person to understand? Tropical and subtropical people. And so he wrote a manuscript. And what he did was that they were able to identify new products, new natural products. So they were able to identify natural dyes, because back home, you know, it's cold and it's mundane, and because it's cold, there's limitation in terms of what grew there. And so there was a limitation on what they could extract raw material from to improve the quality of their life. But when they came to the tropics, they saw our ancestors being painted with brilliant colors. They saw their fabrics being painted are being dyed with brilliant colors. These were colors that were new to them, things that they couldn't understand. And only to realize that our ancestors got these colors, these natural colors from plant. So when in his documenting, one of the things that he was trying to find were new products. So they identified dyes. They identify dye from one of our plants is logwood. Let me see if I can find a logwood tree. I don't have any logwood on the property here. But logwood provides a number of colors. Logwood can give you a bright red, it can give you a purple, and it can give you an orange color. So a number of colors. If you know how to apply baking soda, and if you know how to apply a number of alkaline ingredients like lemon juice, you can, to some extent, alter the different color that you extract from logwood heart. Not only that, but it's something that we use. We use it a lot because we have persons who have problems with iron deficiency. It's one of the main medicine that we use in order to correct iron deficiency. That's the logwood heart. So as John Lindsay was taking a record, he realized that our most valuable assets was our natural resources. Jamaica and the Caribbean's value to the world was the recognition and the understanding that our natural resources is our value. And no wonder it's called the land of wood and water, because one of our greatest assets is our herbs and our water and our land. Our land, our wood, and our water is our greatest resources. And sad to say, that is what the colonial interests saw in Jamaica. Now, you would think that after independence, as a people, we would have begun to capitalize on that. Would have begun to capitalize on our land usage. We would have begun to capitalize on our wood, would have begun to capitalize on our water. We have not done so. And so they identified a number of products. Belize, for example, was mined out of lots of logwood. So Jamaica also used to be a place where logwood was mined from. And so when I look back at our independence, independence should mean that we have the power to define, we have the power to take control. I don't think we have done a good job in terms of understanding our greatest resource and managing that resource. I always say that we have built our economy on something as fickle as tourism, something as fickle as the call centers, something as fickle as mining. When you think about, let me give you an example. If you want to build Jamaica, if you want to build tourism, because there's nothing wrong with that. But I guarantee you that if a guest would pay $100 for a room for leisure, if a guest would pay $100 for a room for leisure, that same guest would pay $500 for that room if they had to stay there in order to get better health care, and if that health care was based on natural principles. So think about what I'm saying. If it is that we were to build our economy on the medicines that Jamaica have, our tourism would be far more valuable. And so what I'm saying is, I'm trying to get the attention of the powers that be to understand that our greatest resource, what the colonial interests saw in Jamaica, was our natural resource, and they explored those natural resources. They exploited those natural resources, not to our benefit. I know, for example, that we are exploiting bauxite in a way that is not in a way that is maximizing our benefit. But that's for another day. Today I want to talk about application. I want to talk about application, and I want to talk about using those herbs that we have observed. So by now, those are you guys who follow through on the homework. I really wish more persons would do it if you can. If you're not sure, because the first thing was to send pictures so we could identify, so we could know whether it's safe or not. I saw, for example, Cheersy. One of the herbs that you sent me is a herb. Let me see if I can remember it. It was a herb that was instrumental in fighting out the COVID-19 vaccine. I don't know if you know that herb, Artemisia. So one of the herbs that you sent to me was Artemisia. They call it sweet wormwood, right? That's one of the herbs that you sent to me, sweet wormwood. And so just imagine, you said it's found in abundance in your local. When the pandemic was raging, the solution was right there. The solution was right there in your yard. And a lot of persons, and so ignorance is what causes things to be expensive. So if you reached out to me looking for a herb from Jamaica, there's a high likelihood that you did not, there's a high likelihood that you did not do your homework to do an assessment or to do an audit of the medicine that is around you. So the whole purpose of this activity, of this homework, is to help you to get involved, is to do an audit. That's what it is. What I'm asking you to do is to do an audit of what you have around you. Because as I said, there's a food crisis coming and there's a medicine crisis coming. So what I'm sharing now, a lot of persons may not value it, may not have a lot of value, but I promise you, Persons are going to be scrambling, and by then maybe these video will be taken down. So I'm saying to you, go ahead and do that audit. Find out what it is that you have around you. Send me the pictures. Join our WhatsApp group. Send me the pictures. This is all free knowledge. This is just free information. So I don't see why you shouldn't take it. The greatest weapon against sickness and disease is education, not medication. All right, so we're going to look at application. So after you have made that observation to identify what is found in abundance, and of course you're going to make a footnote of what else is there but not necessarily in abundance. The next thing that you want to do is you want to taste those plants, you want to taste those herbs and try to get a feel of the taste, the sourness, the bitterness, the astringency, the pungency. You want to get a taste of the different taste that you get from those herbs, and you want to be able now to build a system, and you want to heighten that sixth sense, but you also want to use that knowledge to be able to identify what herbal properties the plant is telling you that it has. And so by tasting the plant is telling you exactly what it is good for, how you can use it. And so as you develop that, and by the way, I didn't get a chance to put the chart up. I'm going to work on that because it's holiday and family is here, so I have to balance between work and family. But I'll get that out to you. I've put together a chart that has over 60 different herbs. That chart basically will help you to identify the 12 different tastes, and it will give examples of plants in each category. And so from that 60 plants, you're pretty much able to heal yourself. As I tell persons, you don't need to know a lot of herbs. What you need to know is a lot about the herbs that you use. That's basically what you need in order to be a good herbalist. And so after tasting it and after becoming familiar with the different tastes and understanding medicinal tastes, you can now use that skill to go into the wild and identify medicinal plants on your own. There are other skills, and again, we go more in depth in the class, and plant signature and another number of other skills that you use in order to ascertain or to determine the medicinal uses of plants. But so that's observation, interpretation. I want to talk about application. Application now is when you begin to explore, you begin to experience these herbs. So some of the herbs that we talked about, we want to dry them and we want to make teas from them, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you what you're having. So this morning I'm going to harvest just a few herbs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to harvest herbs. Now, when you're harvesting herbs, you want to harvest your herbs preferably in the morning. You want to harvest your herbs during the time when the sun is high. So I'm going to get my pruner. You want to get one of these because, again, we have to understand that plants are alive. Plants are living entities, and we want to respect life. As natural practitioners, we want to practice the importance of respecting other forms of energy, other forms of life other than yourself. So typically we want to harvest the herbs during the sun. Why during the sun? Because when the sun is out is when the minerals and the nutrients is available. What happens is that plants very much function. They're very similar to us. Already most of you know that during the days, the plants give off oxygen and we take in oxygen. And then during the night, when we give off carbon dioxide, they come again. So they give off oxygen during the day. We use oxygen. We give off carbon dioxide, and they take it in. In the night, it's the other way around. So we're very much linked. So during the day, the herb, what it does is that it works with the sun. So when the sun is going down, what happens is that the minerals in the plant go back down. It goes down to the root of the plant, and um, we go a lot in. You have to know when to harvest different parts of the plant. So there's the above portion of the plants, and then there's the below the earth portion of the plant. All right, that's very important because again, different parts of the plant carries different potency, or sometimes different parts of the plants have a higher concentration of certain chemicals than some. All right, so some herbs we use mostly the root part of it. For some herbs we use mostly the leaves part of it. But in terms of plant, the potency of plants basically move from, we have the root, then the bark and the stem, then we have the leaf and the flower. So it increases in potency from the root all the way up. And so if it is that you are going to use the above portion of the plant, which is the leaves, then you need to understand that the minerals is available during the daylight, the time when the sun is out. The minute, so right now, the sun, we're in the morning where the sun is rising. So what is happening is the minerals is moving from the roots all the way into the leaves. So they're going to become bioavailable. They're bioavailable now. So you really want to harvest your herbs before midday, before 12 o'clock. So and you also want to bear in mind the moon phases, which we're not going to go into. So the plants are basically very sensitive to light. Not only when you are going to harvest it, but even after you harvest it. Because if you harvest a plant and you leave it in an area for sun or for oxygen, then it begins to deteriorate. So you want to be very careful about that. All right. So the rule of the thumb is we harvest like 1/3. In a commercial setting, you don't want to harvest. Don't want to over harvest. You don't want to harvest a plant in any way it becomes harmful. And so some herbalists, my wife ourselves, we talk to the plant, we understand, we realize that it is alive and it must be respected. We don't want to disrespect and abuse one form of life to sustain another form of life. We want to respect life. We want to respect the energy right across the board. So sometimes I'll talk to the plant and say, hey, how you doing today? You're looking so green. You're looking so nice. I like the way your leaves are looking. I'm seeking your permission to just take parts of your healing properties to help me with a condition. All right. So I'm seeking your permission just to extract. And I'm going to use a pruning knife to cut it. I'm not going to tear it. I'm not going to break it, so that even after I'm done, I'm not going to hurt the tree. I'm not going to damage the tree. I'm going to do a nice, quick, clean cut, and I'm going to cut off a portion. So basically, this is what I'm going to dry. All right, this is what I'm going to dry. I'm going to dry this, and I'm going to make a tea. So over the next couple of days, I've started with the uh, show button. All right, so I'm going to be experimenting. I've never had it before. Right? Never had show button before, but I've tasted it, and I've tasted an astringency in it, and I've tasted a sourness in it. So I know what those two will do, and it's like two ironic flavors in one plant. So I'm gonna dry this, and I'm gonna take this as a tea, and I'm going to share with you my experience. So I've tasted it raw. I know what it tastes like raw. I know what it looks like raw. Because again, a lot of practicing herbalists don't know what plants look like in their natural state. And so their practice is based on just buying dry herbs. What happens when there's a disturbance in the system? What happens when the ecosystem becomes so disturbed that you can't get your dry herbs? Are you able to identify in its raw state? Are you able to identify in its green state? And so that is the reason why in our course we also have a 6-week internship in summer. Um, so again, that's something that you can look forward to in summer. You can come on down and you can have a in-person immersion into the culture here. So you can, if it's possible, you can look at your diary. um I'll tell you more about the dates, but it's going to be in summer, for 6 weeks in summer. All right. It's usually from July. It's between the months of July and August, but I'll give you more information on that. So before I go back to this, I just wanted, because I was talking about the harvesting, and I was saying that, so if you were to be here, most of the herbs that are from the pea family, if you are here, or I don't know where you are, wherever you are, I want you to pay attention to the plant. First thing, this plant has been disconnected from the parent plant, but right now it's losing moisture. You can't see it, but if you were to put this in a plastic bag in a very short period of time, you would see water accumulating on the bag, and that is the minerals, the volatile oils, all those medicines that are leaving the plant. It's like the life. Now that you've disconnected it, it's gonna go from being green to dry. So the life, the energy begins to leave the plant, which is one of the reasons why, again, understanding the mode of delivery. How are you going to deliver the medicine? Again, we go into that. Are you going to use a hydrosol? Are you going to use a tincture? Are you going to use a capsule? Are you going to use a salve? How are you going to use? But one of the most powerful forms of transferring not only the nutritional value of herbs, but the medicinal value is hydrosols. Because what hydrosols do, this plant, I've picked it green, I would carry it right to my distiller, and I would start to capture the essence, the spirit, the life of the plant. I begin to convert it from the plant into a form that I can now take it. Now, that's the reason why hydrosols are like 10 times more powerful than tinctures. And it doesn't have alcohol, and it doesn't, and it just agrees with your biology. So again, mode of delivery is very important. But I was talking about um, harvesting while the sun is going up. So while the sun is going up, the nutrients are leaving from the roots to the the leaves. Why is that important? That knowledge is important because if you were harvesting the part of the plant that is the leaf, then that is when you would want to harvest the leaves. In the evening, so I was talking about herbs from the pea family, you literally will see the leaves close up. You literally will see the leaves wilt. It's as if they go to sleep. The reason for that is because all the nutrients, all the bioavailable nutrients leaves the root, the leaves, and go back to the root. Hey Ruth, how are you? So nice to have you. So the nutrients leaves and it goes back to the roots. And so depending on which part, so if you want sarsaparilla, then if you're gonna dig sarsaparilla in the morning, you have to try to dig it before the sun comes up, before the nutrients leave the roots and goes to the leaves. Or you want to try to dig it after. You also want to pay attention to the moon phase, which is why if you're digging it, because again, when the moon is out, then you have what is called an extra extension of light. That moon has a gravitational effect on the plant. Because what you want from the plant is the liquid inside the plant, the bioavailable liquid. That's where the minerals are. So you want to do that. All right. So what I want now is the leaves. And I say, guys, trying to go very fast. Uh, trying to go very. Hey, Ruth, trying to go very fast because I'm coming down to 52 minutes. But I'll talk more about it. Or if you want me to talk more about it, let me know in the Telegram group. So there's a link to join our Telegram group. Whatever you want to communicate, still let me know on the live. Ask questions there. But if you want to be more intimate in terms of learning, then we have a Telegram group. The link is in the description that you can join and that you can just come and share with us. But I'm going to be drying this, and I'm going to be using this for my tea, and I'm going to be sharing my experience with you. A lot of you guys have outstanding homework. If you don't know what the homework is, it's in the Telegram groups. Just go to the Telegram group, stroll up, and you will see the homework. When you do it, guys, it's going to be for our benefit. All right. So I want to use the next 7 minutes to talk about our course, Diploma in Indigenous Caribbean Medicine. It's the first that something like that has ever been done. My goal is to create a formal way of studying, not studying because the information is there. It's a formal way, of organizing and structuring that ancient wisdom that we have, so that we can have it for successive generation. One of the things I would also want to do is I want to see more young people. I want this knowledge to be preserved. I want it to be protected for future generation. A lot of persons are usually reactive. They wait until there's a crisis to see the value in what I'm doing and try to get it. But what I'm saying no is try to equip yourself. Try to put yourself in a position. You don't have to want to go into practice. Try to put yourself in a position where you are empowered to take care of yourself and to take care of your family when the crisis comes. One thing I talk about a lot is food, because this plant is also edible. In other words, it can be cooked, it can be eaten as a vegetable. Most plants that are medicinal are also nutritional. Nutritional vegetables are usually herbs in their more younger and tender state. Most vegetables, if you allow them to mature to the point, then they become more medicinal than nutritional. And again, you know the difference because nature will tell you. Nature will ensure that the more a plant moves from nutritional to medicinal, it becomes less palatable. So what nature will do is that nature will increase the bitter constituents of it. Nature will increase the bitter constituents of the plant to become a deterrent, so you don't want to eat it. Nature will allow to become more fibrous to affect the palatability of it, so it becomes less palatable. So callaloo, pak choy, all of these nutritional vegetables, if you allow them to mature, they are not as soft and as easy to chew. They become more tougher, they become more bitter, because guess what happened? They've changed from their nutritional form to their medicinal form. And so it's vice versa. Most of those plants that are medicines, if you can find them when they're very tender, then they are vegetables. And that is how we need to understand and be able to know, go out there and to discover new vegetables. For example, so right now we're exploring the medicinal. A lot of these plants, we're going to move beyond medicinal and we're going to experiment with cooking them. The goal is to identify and to develop more options, is to expand our option, because right now what's happening to us is that most of what we call vegetable has really been domesticated by the powers that be. I mean, those, and then what they have done is that they've further gone on to genetically modify them, because they realize that most persons have become limited to just those vegetables. And so they know persons are locked into that mindset. And so what they have done is that they have now genetically modified them. And even though a person know that it's not good, then guess what happened? Person say, I can't do better because I don't know anything outside of the box that I'm in. So I have to eat what is given to me. Well, you don't have to. They have not genetically modified these vegetables. They're not genetically modified. None of these plants that are alkaline, that are much better for you. And so a lot of what you have around you that you're destroying, that you're paying hundreds of thousands to be destroyed as weed, is not only medicine, it is food. And then we're crying that food is expensive. This false impression of a food crisis, this man-made crisis of food shortage, is only because of our limited knowledge. And so we have to expand our horizon, we have to expand our knowledge base. Not only are these vegetables better for you, but they are much more cleaner. So you have to experiment. That was what our ancestors did. And sad to say, just like in Jamaica here, we have a whole list of plants that were known and that used to be eaten as vegetables that we now don't eat. We have allowed the system to prevent us from exploring these herbs. I'm talking herbs like Fattenbarrow, herbs like porcelain, herbs like wild hook, herbs like spirit weed. So many herbs that are out there that we used to eat. And the goal is not just to, I don't want to give you knowledge that you think that, oh, it's just Jamaican herbs. I want you to expand your horizon of the herbs around you. I want you to tap into your six senses. I don't want you to base your knowledge of herbology and my experience. I want you to have an objective approach. I want you to have an approach that is applicable. What I'm doing here, I would absolutely love to come to Africa to do, because I realize that in Ghana, and I realize that in the motherland where we came from, just like how we have not developed our brand of medicine, and we have not fully exploited it, but the colonial powers have done. They have left that same philosophical approach, that same principle back in Africa. And so even though Africa has some very powerful herbs, the Africans who use them have died without passing the knowledge on, without preserving the knowledge on. And that is also true to so many parts of the Caribbean. The only places where we don't see that is places like China and places like India, where they have chosen to capitalize on the raw material around them. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me on this 60 Minutes with Nature. It was absolutely my plum pleasure being with you. If you're not yet a part of our community, please, there's a link in the description. Go ahead and join. I'd love to see you there. Love to hear from you. If you have any ideas as to what type of herbs you'd want me to look on, herbs any particular ailment, herbs any particular disease, then please let me know and I will do so. Let me know your thoughts on what I've spoken about today and more what you would want to see content on. So there will be no live tomorrow. Tomorrow is what? Tuesday? Tomorrow, right. So there'll be no video tomorrow. And there'll be no video on Wednesday. So for the next 2 days, I won't be able to have any videos. But come Thursday morning, I'll be back on. So until the meantime, guys, love to hear from you. Put your content. If you have not subscribed to our channel, if you believe that this content is of value to you, then please go ahead, subscribe, like, and share. And see you on Thursday morning on another 60 Minutes with Mother Nature. Bye-bye.